I studied 937 viral TikToks. And a lot of people were like, that's a really specific number. Well, I had 1,000 prepped to study and I just got tired at 937. I was like, I'm done. But I extracted over 100 hooks from those videos based on what was replicable, what anyone could use. And so anytime that I need to come up with a hook, I don't have to think about it now. So I can just pop this open and I'll be like, okay. And I'll just share a couple of these here while we're talking. Ready? So
what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to My Social Life. I'm your host, Jacob Kelly. As always, today's podcast is powered by TrueFan. And this is the podcast where we teach you how to grow on social media by talking to people who have actually done it. People like Rachel Pedersen, who teaches some of the biggest brands in the world, like Dean Graziosi, ClickFunnels, Roland Fraser, and Lionsgate, and more about how to grow on social media. She herself has over 1 million followers on TikTok, over 175,000 followers on Instagram, and over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I cannot be more excited to have her here on the podcast today. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Jacob, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. And where I want to start, before we really dive into everything, I just want to know, who was Rachel before social media, before TikTok? I got some notes here, but I'd love to hear kind of your side of the story first.
Before social media, before everything, if we go back just about 10 years, I was a single mom on welfare and food stamps, living out of one bedroom that we rented with my daughter, Dakota. And I was working my way towards becoming a hairstylist, which I did ultimately become. It's why my hair actually always looks good. People are always like, what the heck? You have great hair. And I'm like, it's literally because I paid to learn how to do hair. So I was a hairstylist. And about 8 years ago, I met my husband. We got married actually 13 days after we met, which is kind of fun and also really crazy. But we've been married for almost actually 9 years. I think we're at 8.5. And before starting all of this, I was literally working as a hairstylist. My husband was a window washer. And I didn't have a following, which is kind of crazy. None. But I was still me.
So I want to go back a little bit further than that, because as far as I know, you're the only person that I've ever spoken to who's been a cheerleader and in the Sea Cadets.
Oh, I love that you did some homework on this. Yes. Okay. In high school, I did cheerleading. I loved cheerleading. So when I went to high school, I grew up in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, went to Champlin Park, and everyone started in cheerleading. So cheerleading was where we all started. And then we all actually evolved to dance teams. So I actually did two things. Well, more than two things, but two things in high school. Started in cheerleading, went to dance line, and then I also did theater. So I starred in 2 of the 3 plays or musicals that I was a part of, and that was really fun. I love theater, like obsessed. I actually thought I was going to be an actress. That was always kind of like a thought and a consideration. I still think about it. I'll be honest. I think that'll come up probably in my 40s or 50s. But I also did Navy Sea Cadets, and that was a really unique experience. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate the military, or like, I don't love the idea of joining the military. I'm just going to say, I learned so much being involved in the military. It was actually really, really helpful for me, especially because I joined while my home and family life were like all the time. And so for me, what that taught me were things like the chain of command, like how to appropriately escalate things, which I didn't realize would come into business a lot. I learned leadership. I learned respect for authorities. I learned how to listen to orders and like actually implement it all the way until it's finished, because you don't want to face your CO and be like, well, it's halfway done. But I went to boot camp. I learned how I became PADI certified in scuba diving. We scuba dived a shipwreck in Lake Superior. I did culinary training, learning how to feed thousands of people in fast order. And then also I spent time on the USS Ronald Reagan while we were out on the ocean for, I think that was like 7 days. And wow, that was a really wild experience.
I bet and like a lot of those things you learned, like you said, they still benefit you today, which is why I asked about those 2 specific things, because I was assuming there would be some carryover to this day. And is it true? I read this somewhere, something else on your background before we dive into it. Is it true at one point you were selling blood plasma to make money or donating blood plasma to make money?
Yep, totally. I did both blood plasma regularly twice a week. So your first visit, you'd get $20, which is awesome. You'd sit there for 45 minutes and pump your fist repeatedly the whole time. Second visit in the week, you got $40. So it was like $60 every week. It was a non-negotiable. And I would often take the bus to go get blood plasma. So I'd take the bus there, donate blood plasma twice a week. I still have scars from it, which is awesome. And then I also did medical experiments. And in case anyone's listening to this, like, ooh, is this a good path? We don't know what the side effects are of any of those medical experiments. So I'm not actually like a proponent of it. I'm just going to say I did what I had to do in order to make sure like ends were made. So I literally one time I spent like 13 days straight these medical testing facilities, and that was like a very surreal experience. But yeah, I did both of those things to make ends meet.
So what was the turning point for you then?
Ooh, if we're going to talk about the turning point, it was before I realized it. So I used to be an alcoholic. I now identify as sober, but I used to be an alcoholic. And I only share that because I know some people will resonate with like, the end of the day, you want to numb things out. So you grab a mason jar of boxed wine. And like, I would watch reality television after my daughter went to bed. And I was on Twitter and I started tweeting at like the stars of TV shows. And I ultimately got in touch with one of the producers of The Bachelor. Now, this is super weird. I love this story because I think most people would be like, wait, what? I got in touch with one of the producers of The Bachelor, and we stayed in touch for years over Twitter and email. And she was wonderful. But for me, I didn't even realize that that was a hint into my future yet. So, like, I'm tweeting these people, they're responding. I'm like, dude, this was so easy. But what I realized at that time was that social media was kind of like a portal of possibility. You can literally get in touch with people that you have no business even talking to in your current state of life. And for me, it was a hint into my future. So that was like the first real hint of like, ooh, there's something there.
And so what year was that?
Oh gosh, 2010 and 2011. Yep. Gosh, that's so long ago. It blows my mind.
And so, because you, when you really stepped into social media, so you had your hair clients. I believe it was one of your hair clients who asked you to manage their social media. They were a fast food chicken company, if I'm not mistaken.
You've got it. Dang, you do your homework. So, I was working as a hairstylist and I was using what I had kind of touched on before. I was like, I don't know how this works, but all I know is when I share like before and afters or things that I've done with hair, more people always seem to come in. So I was posting, I think at that time on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those were the three that I was focusing on and just posting all this, not really growing big, definitely not famous. But what I noticed is the more that I posted my results, the more people seemed to always come in. And one day, someone sat in my chair and we started talking about social media. And we started talking. This is actually really funny. We started talking about like Shark Tank. And at that point in time, I thought I totally understood business. And I was like, oh, yeah, like equity evaluations and stuff. And I'm like talking a big game. For those reasons, I'm out, and we're laughing and having a good time as I'm giving her a full foil. And she goes, can you show me your tweeter? And I was like, I don't think we do that at this salon. She's like, no, the blue bird. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, Twitter. So I pull up my Twitter, pull up my Instagram, show her what we've got going on. And I still to this day, maybe I kind of get it now. I don't understand exactly what she saw in me because I knew so little, but I knew more than her about social. So she was like, could we hire you to come over to our house and actually become a marketing consultant for us? And I'm like, yeah. And I found out it paid $15 an hour. I'm like, this is amazing. So, I'm taking home these $75 to $150 paychecks every 2 weeks. But I was like, this is the best life ever. And it was from there that I just jumped into marketing. And I'll be honest, most of the time, she would say, next time you come over to our house, can you set up our YouTube channel? And I'd be like, of course, of course. Meanwhile, I'm like, Google how to set up a YouTube channel, like watching all the videos I can about it. So I learned everything in real time. And it was a very eye-opening, humbling start, to be honest.
And so then how long from that point was it before you quit the job at the salon?
Oh, it was kind of fast. I didn't really this that time I didn't really plan. I'll be honest, my husband and I were pretty broke. So part of me was like, oh, well, there's like not really much down from here. We weren't quite in poverty, but I was like, well, I've been in poverty before. It doesn't really scare me. We can end up in a van by the river. So pretty shortly after that, they referred me to another client paying $25 an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go all in on this. So I made an interesting move to work for, and I'm going to put this in quotes, a marketing agency, which sounds really fancy, but really, the spam emails we all get, Jacob, like the ones where it's just like, oh, just stop. Yeah, that's what we did. So we were a lead generation marketing agency that basically spammed millions of emails every single day legally through can spam. So I know more about can spam than I should. A lot of people think you can't spam. You actually can spam, which is so wild. You can spam emails as long as they're business emails. I learned a lot there, but I did not enjoy that job. And then from there, I applied for an Inc. 5000 tech company. It was in network hardware, which I knew nothing about, but I was getting pretty passionate about social media at this point. And they offered me the job, and I became a marketing manager of an Inc. 5000 tech company.
So you're at the Inc. 5000 tech company. And then ultimately, when were you still doing client stuff on the side, or how did that ultimately end up happening?
Yes, I started working with clients. I stayed working with the existing clients I had first, worked with clients on the side. And what's interesting, like I actually didn't hate the job at the Inc. 5000 tech company. I know a lot of people's stories begin with, I hate this. I actually loved everyone I worked with, or almost everyone that I worked with. Like it was a really fun experience. But I'm actually going to say the only thing that they missed out on was recognizing potential talent or potential possibilities for growth. They were a little more traditional and old school, so there was a lot of resistance to new social media techniques. So a lot of the things I was doing were like hosting networking events and putting together flyers, and that's great. But I was like, oh, guys, like we could crush it if we just built out this funnel and like collected emails. And they kind of did, but they were super resistant to it. And then whenever I don't know if anyone else listening feels this way, but when I feel stuck, I'm like, I gotta run. When I feel stuck, I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And so I was kind of just like feeling a little creatively like stuck. And so I started showing up later and later to work, which doesn't usually work too well. And then my daughter was sick from school, so I stayed home with her a couple days more than I definitely had permission to. Got written up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to build my own thing. So I started securing clients while in that 9 to 5. I did it in the mornings, did it on lunch break. Whenever I saw that the smokers went out, I was like, oh, opportunity to take a break. So I'd go and walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes and make calls or send messages. And then I started that like aggressively in November of 2015. And by April of 2016, I had replaced my income and was ready to leave, which was kind of wild.
I like that you waited till you replaced your income, because I feel like a lot of people, when they know they want to take that jump, they want to take it right away. And while you can do that, and it is possible, when you have that from the full-time job money to supplement you, it allows you to make better decisions. Versus if you left, you would have had to take on any and every like shitty client that you can just to get money coming in the door. But when you know you have the paycheck coming in, you can say no to clients you don't want to work with and only take on the ones you want to work with. So I love that you did that. I think that's such an important thing for people listening to understand.
I think so too. I will say, like, I know some people, let's say, for example, I was 22 years old with no kids and no like consistent rent or having a bunch of roommates. Oh, I totally would have made the leap and probably still donated blood plasma and done medical experiments to make sure that everything was fine. I read something in a book by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a book called Big Magic. And she said there's no shame in creatively, actually intentionally having a secure paycheck so that you don't have undue pressure on your creativity. And I really took that to heart. And I'm just going to be honest, it was the more responsible decision for me.
You're a social media expert. And I don't use that term lightly. And I know a lot of people do. But my least favorite thing is to see social media experts on TikTok or Instagram teaching you how to grow with 1,000 followers, with 800 followers. And it just doesn't make sense to me. And that's why like I would never, like the premise of the show is I talk to people who have done it. So I never brand myself as the expert. I go to the experts. And in your case, like I talked about in the intro, 1 million plus on TikTok, 175 plus K on Instagram, 100K plus YouTube. You're not only talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
So this is really big with a lot of experts. And this is really tough because I feel like, okay, so I'm going to dive into one weird nuance here. So a lot of experts who crush it for clients, they never go and do it themselves, which technically is fine, but as move on from clients, your results and wins disappear too. And so it's interesting because it's a lot easier to market someone else. You can get paid to learn how to market and become great at it. But for many people who are actually really talented, it's really scary to market yourself and focus on this is my voice, this is what I believe in, this is my message. Like it's terrifying. But when you're working with clients, it is so much easier to be like, here's what you do versus taking it one step further. And this is truly, I believe it's a huge part of mastery is being able to do it yourself. It's easy for me to look at a business and say, you need to be producing 10 videos a day. But if I'm not producing 10 videos a day, they're going to be like, liar, you hypocrite, right? And so I learned that if I could also grow mine, no matter what happens, clients come and go, but I'd be able to always point to, here are my results. Like they're here. And I will say, there is nothing more humbling than building your own platforms and learning what works, what doesn't, where burnout occurs. Ugh, it's intense.
Very much. And that's a good point, I guess, with burnout too. Like if you spend all day doing it for other people, sometimes it's tough at the end of the day to come back and do it for yourself. And so I know you have a lot of systems around how you create your content. I was wondering if we could dive into that.
I would love to. I create all my systems based on points of resistance and objections. So that has been super helpful for us. So let's dive on in.
So I got it written down here. So your content, one thing I wrote down, I highlighted, and this is the exact quote I have in my notes, is her content output is bonkers. That is the exact verbiage I used in my notes. It's like, can you quantify how much are you putting out every day and on which platforms?
Can I actually just go through my list?
Of course.
I have several modes for content creation only because life is wild. I have 3 kids. I have a husband. We have 2 businesses. And there are days where, you know what? Bare minimum is good enough. And we call those maintenance mode. So maintenance mode is where I focus on the MVP needle movers. And I'm going to rework this a little bit semi soon, but this is pretty dang accurate. So no matter what, I send out 1 email per day, 3 to 5 times a week, which by the way is not the right pace for most people. I just pack tons of information into all of my emails and I love writing them. I send 1 community text per day. I record 1 podcast per day. That's once again 3 to 5. I give myself wiggle room. 1 TikTok per day, 1 YouTube shorts per day. And then we have our consistency mode, which is like growth. So then I produce, this is going to get wild. So please don't, anyone listening to this, please don't compare yourself to our bonkers like content creation mode. So I go through my Facebook memories. I send encouragement to 1 person per day. I say happy birthday to everyone on Facebook. I tag people in opportunities. I respond to some community messages each day from my text messages. I do IG Reels, 1 IG Reel per day, 1 tweet per day, 1 10 things list per day, 1 post in each and every one of my groups, a Facebook page post, a LinkedIn post, a YouTube community post, 1 book club post per week, 1 to 4 live stream trainings per month, 1 YouTube video per week, 1 post for this other specific group. And then every month I announce our new book club book. But there's one more mode. So I actually recommend these modes because one thing I've noticed with most business owners and content creators is we actually, when we get bored or stuck or whatever, we start creating trouble. And so we'll create more projects that create more work for us, et cetera. And so I have an intentional stretch or sprint mode. So when I have like 2 hours left in the day and part of me is like, create a new program or go get 10 more clients. I'm like, no, I'm just going to focus on my sprint mode. So I create on stretch mode days, 1 unpublished works. So we have a folder of unpublished works that won't be released until I'm dead. Sounds really morbid, but that's fine. Record 20 TikToks per day, 1 YouTube video per day in stretch mode, 10 TikToks posted per day, 10 YouTube shorts posted per day, and 10 IG Reels posted per day. And I do this all myself. So that's kind of wild.
Like when you say all yourself, are you editing it as well and recording it all? And like, do you out? So how does that work?
We use almost no editing. When I get into stretch mode, that's where I'll start tapping into our video editor just for the YouTube videos. My TikToks aren't, at least as it stands at the time of recording, this could change someday. My TikToks are recorded, edited, and posted by me. Same on every single platform. My team does do the send outs of active campaign emails because they want to test it because I'm notorious for broken links and then everyone gets mad. So my team's always like, we have to test this. And then my podcasts are posted by my team, but everything else is done by me.
And so then how do you determine, I guess just kind of like the life circumstances, depending on which mode you'll be in?
Exactly. Like everyone can have an amazing plan. And then you might wake up with the flu, or your kids might be like, Mom, I don't feel so good, and projectile vomit all over your carpet. And so you just never know what's going to happen. So I like to have realistic, like, this is objectively good enough for today. And I go day by day. But basically, anytime that I could end the day early, I think, like, oh, I could end the day early, or what if I plant seeds for the future and for an end goal to come, you know? And so that's where I intentionally stretch versus being like, let's cause some trouble for my team. They're going to be mad at me. But yeah, that helps a lot.
I like the idea of different modes because I feel like as content creators, often we don't feel like we can adjust our output. It's always just we have to increase it and then maintain that increase forever. But I was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Cal Newport recently, and they were talking about how as a professor, Cal has seasons in his life where he's working and then he has. And he says everyone should incorporate that in some way. And so you can almost use these modes to be like seasons, like you have your sprint mode, which could be a season or something, like, you know what I mean? Just so that to adjust your output based off of, like I said, life circumstance of what else you have going on. Cause I feel like if I were to increase my TikToks to 2 a day, 3 a day, I could never take a step back and do less. So it's really interesting to have those different modes and to do them intentionally as well, I think is the key part.
Oh, yeah. One thing that helps too is burnout's a real thing. And usually, what it looks like is what you just said. People will be like, here's my current content production. Now I'm going to increase it. It's every day. There's no excuses, etc. And so at first, you start feeling a little toasty before you get burnt. And I've learned that on days where I'm feeling particularly toasty, I can say, you know what? I don't want to burn out because I know the price of burnout. Here's what usually happens with burnout. You literally go, I I will be sick if I ever look at this platform again. I can't even think of creating a piece of content today or even ever. I don't see the end in sight. And people will just disappear for months, which, by the way, you always have the right to do, without a doubt. But sometimes you can, before burnout hits, you can be like, ooh, I'm getting a little snappy with my team, or I'm getting really angry at comments or whatever, and just pull back so that burnout doesn't happen. And that has been a game changer for me to realize I don't have to be sprint mode every day and then burn out for 3 months.
When you aren't burnt out, let's say you're in a sprint mode, you just kind of walk through the high volume of content you're putting out. How do you come up with ideas?
Ooh. So every Friday, I block out time for study and research and planning. And this is one of my favorite things to do. So I have in my drive, it's so wild. It's actually kind of a little borderline, well, not borderline. My therapist would say it's straight up full on OCD. I obsessively make content prompt lists for each and every platform. Now, TikTok is one that is a domino. So my TikToks show up on IG Reels and YouTube Shorts. So that one's a little different. But for YouTube, for my podcast, for my emails, for TikTok, I have these long lists that I go through, and you can go back through them again. So on Fridays, I'll go and study what's working for other people and just keep adding to those lists so that I never have to wonder. Here's one more hack that really helps. You know how we all kind of scroll social at night? Even though we love to pretend like we don't, most of us we binge Netflix or binge something on Amazon, and then we scroll social while we're watching. I learned that I could use that time to prepare things for the next day or the next week. So if I'm going to scroll on TikTok, I'm going to compile trends or content that I want to model. So if I end up with 10 or 20 per night, I'm going to be set next time I need to sprint, and I add them all to favorites. And then the next day, go and grab all those links and add them to my prompts sheet.
How do you find times to take a break? If you're using that downtime at night, we normally just kind of unplug and watch Netflix or just mindlessly scroll. If you're using that to kind of to be productive, where do you find times in your day to take breaks? I feel like that's an important part that a lot of people miss out on.
Ooh, I'll be honest, I'm not the best leader here. I don't take a ton of breaks Monday through Friday, with a few exceptions. One exception is from the time that usually around 6 o'clock to about 9 o'clock. I stay off social almost 100%. I don't really use my phone. We do family dinner, and we almost always do no electronics dinner, and we ask questions and we play games. Or we'll all sit and watch shows or watch fails of the week on YouTube all together. That's so funny. So there is like a built into sometimes 3 hour window where it's just family. Now, one thing I will say that's really surreal, if anyone's listening to this and you have kids, um, there's not really ever a break, which is the weirdest thing. My friends who don't have kids, sometimes they'll come over and they'll be like, there's no break. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And I love my kids so much, but it's a good recognition, like, I signed up for running 2 businesses and having platforms and also to be the mom of 3 kids. Now, here's the exception. I disappear on weekends, which sometimes throws people for a loop. Because when I say I disappear, I maybe will respond to one question per weekend, but I completely disappear. There's no content creation on weekends. Nothing's happening. And that is not natural for me. It was a learned decision. I've been through many seasons of extreme burnout, and I realized that forcing myself to disappear on weekends actually like rejuvenates my excitement to get back on Monday. So I straight up disappear on weekends, and I have permission to waste as much time as I want every single weekend. So like if we want to just, sit around and watch silly YouTube videos or play games, we can do that all weekend. I have no desire to be a productive citizen of humanity in any way on weekends.
Algorithmically, do you think that has an impact on your content when you post it? If you go zero dark 30 Saturday, Sunday, and then you're coming back on Monday, do you notice a dip in content performance on Monday? Like, does TikTok get mad at you for doing that? Is my question essentially.
I have noticed that there are some issues with that, and the trade-off just isn't worth it for me right now. Um, I will say right now, one of the things, I mean, my content production level is abnormal. Please, everybody, do not try to do this level of content because this is really intense, even for me. But this is my version of pushing myself. Can I share one really interesting insight? So, we all listen to those motivational tracks, and they're always like, hit the gym before everyone else, and no one's going to outwork me in the gym. And so I used to think that that was literal. Like I had to get wildly fit to be an amazing entrepreneur. And then I realized all the people who are making these videos or talking about this are athletes or people whose bodies are a part of their work. And so when I realized that if I change everything to content creation and production and business related stuff, I can say those things are true for me. It's not going to be in the gym. I don't need to be a peak performance athlete. I need to be a peak performance content creator. So that was really helpful for me to kind of shift some expectations. I will say that pretty soon I'm going to start tag teaming some support. We will be looking for someone to bring onto our team to amplify and support my efforts. And that's probably in the next 3 to 6 months. I'm not rushing for that, but it's going to be really exciting because I would love to have consistent content going out all throughout the day, 7 days a week.
Just even right now, if you're doing times where you're doing 10 videos a day, how come over the weekends? What if you went 8 on Friday and then 1 and 1 on Saturday, Sunday?
It sounds really reasonable. I wish I wasn't an all or nothing person. So if I record or even have recorded TikToks, it's so challenging for me to not disappear into the TikTok time portal for like an hour and start scrolling or look at comments or respond to comments. And so I've tried just doing 1 or 2 on the weekends, and I always end up doing full work. And so I usually just leave my phone in my office intentionally throughout the weekend. And I only grab it when it's time for like Duolingo or meditation. And then I put it back on purpose. I want it out of sight, out of mind, everything. But we'll get some systems in place for weekends at some point.
Of course. And so with doing TikTok then, specifically, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you do all your videos in one take for the most part.
Almost 100%. Yep.
How do you, I can't really ask how to do that because I feel like that's just a learned skill. So there's nothing you can say to someone that's going to get to do that. But specifically for the beginning, I'm curious how you approach doing your hooks because that's one of the most important parts of your TikTok. So how do you capture someone's attention in those first 1 to 2 seconds?
It's interesting because that's the single most important thing. There was a time where I actually created a really cool hook and it worked really well. And then everyone started stealing it and they were totally lying, which drove me crazy. And the hook it was true, by the way. I studied 937 viral TikToks. And here's what I discovered. And then everyone started saying that exact thing with the exact number. And I was like, okay, now you guys are just lying because I guarantee you did not sit there and study. And a lot of people were like, that's a really specific number. Well, I had 1,000 prepped to study. And I just got tired at 9:37. I was like, I'm done. But I extracted over 100 hooks from those videos based on what was replicable, what anyone could use. And so anytime that I need to come up with a hook, I don't have to think about it now. So this is where the OCD comes in handy. I can just pop this open and I'll be like, okay, and I'll just share a couple of these here while we're talking. Ready? So here are the secrets too. I'm about to share with you. Do you want traffic from the number one thing I've learned from? And so I'll take the verbatim hooks from other people's videos and then templatize it so that it's modeled, not stolen or lying. So that helps so much.
And so with those, like those hooks specifically, how do you know those are effective ones? Is it when you go through those 937s, those are the wording that came up over and over again? Is that how you found those?
Exactly. And we do the same thing too with like YouTube, for example. We studied the top 30 videos from the top 30 channels that are in our industry. And it was the top 30, their top 30. So the top 900. And I was not able to create more than 50 templatized titles from all of those because I'd be like, wait, this one again? I already did this one. And so you kind of start to see the patterns. And that's actually one of my favorite things to do is identify patterns. And I think if more content creators intentionally uh, consumed content looking for patterns, and I'm talking everything, you'll learn so much. So if I'm going to watch a TikTok that's viral, I'm going to say, okay, what can I learn about the hook? What can I learn about their background? What can I learn about their pace of speaking? What can I learn about the text on their screen or the outfit that they're wearing? Like, I'll literally sit and create 7 to 20 different patterns that I see on videos. And that's my nerd out zone. I love it so much.
And that's every Friday you're doing this?
Every Friday, I do some type of study, and I don't have a plan for like what I'm going to study. I study whatever gets me excited for that Friday. So I can do TikToks or YouTube videos or hack a business model. Like it's fun. It's really fun.
And for those 937 intros, were those also in your industry? Like, how did you find those specific videos, and what was viral in that in terms of your approach to doing that?
So basically on TikTok, if you search for any keywords, you can find this is one super ninja hack that I love. I'm sure everyone already knows this, but maybe they don't. If you search for any keywords or terms on TikTok, it's going to show you mostly the videos that have performed the best. So, for example, if I go to TikTok right now, and you can do this on desktop, which I love because I prefer desktop to mobile, I can actually type in, let's just say, marketing. And a ton of videos are going to show up. It's going to show me the first one has 2 million views. The next one has 1.5 million, 1.4 million. And I can literally go and search for the patterns there. Now, the media definition of viral is a little different than how I define it. The media definition of viral is 10 million reached organically in a week. So sometimes I'll make it clear that I'm talking about mini viral, which means reaching abnormally more people than you normally reach. So it's way beyond baseline. And that's what I like to look for. So for example, if someone did a video and it only reached 20,000 people, but they normally only reach 200, they're on to something there. And I can model it without it even feeling like the same video. I can model it, get inspired, and then create it and see it reaching hundreds of thousands or even millions.
And so with this spreadsheet you have of all 937, what is like, I really want to nerd out on this part. Like what does it look like? What are the headers essentially? Like how do you organize it all?
So I write everything in caps all the time. I even have like a little Chrome extension that turns it into sentence case because a lot of people don't like to read my all caps. I actually heard it's like an architecture or an engineering thing, but I love writing in all caps so I don't have to go back and forth with my brain. So I'll write the keyword first in all caps and then bolded. So these are the results for marketing. These are the results for TikTok. These are the results for YouTube, Instagram, etc. And I'll shoot for like 10 or 20 in each of those areas, unless one particular keyword brings up a ton of amazing results. And then I'll be like, oh, let's do even more here. So I usually shoot for 12 subcategories. And that works pretty well. The first time I did this research, the 937, I want to say that we had um, almost 100 videos per subcategory because I was like, I want to find it all. I want to find all of the best in these 12 categories and then almost 100 in each of those that we studied.
Okay. And then if so it's is it like a Excel sheet? Is that where you're categorize them all?
So my brain works best with Google Docs. I want to share one more thing that helps is other people's systems can work, but you have to adapt them for you and what makes sense for you. Sheets make my brain hurt unless they're just math and numbers. So anytime that I look at like written words in a Google Sheet, I just like instant non-compute. So I do Google Docs and I have a lot of line breaks for readability. So that helps me a lot. And then I'll just make my notes there.
So you're looking at everybody else's content on Friday. Do you also look at your own content on Friday and review your own performance and see like maybe this hook works better for me than this specific hook? Like how often are you looking at your own content?
Not as often, which is interesting. I do it about once a quarter. So once a quarter, we use a tool called Smarter Q, and you can pull up not TikTok yet, unfortunately, but you can pull up your top posts for like the last you could do 5 years, it's wild, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So whenever I do that, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then I'll just repurpose that content. And then one more thing that I do that I really have been liking is every day I check my memories on Facebook and find my content that did decently well in my memories. And I have 14 years of memories, which is kind of cool. And I'll repost something if I still agree with it and still believe in it. And usually it'll do better than the first time because now there's a bigger following to engage with it. So I do like to every single day grab some old content and reuse it or update it and make it new. But I actually look at my content about once a quarter. And at some point we might increase that, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
Is there any reason why? Is it just like as to why you don't do it more often?
Time. I don't really have a good excuse for that one. It just hasn't been the biggest priority. Once a quarter feels like enough. Um, I don't know. If you want to look at your content every Friday, I think you can learn a lot. Quarterly helps me because sometimes platforms you don't always get the reaction you're looking for in the first week. And I will say it's usually within 1 to 3 months that I see like a lot more of not the full picture, but closer to the full picture of how something's going to perform.
Definitely. You can probably identify more patterns in your own content over a 3 month period versus like if you're doing TikTok every week, there's a lot more videos coming out in that week. So it's just a higher. Also, this is a kind of a left turn, but do you use Notion
No,
for
what
anything?
is that?
Notion is like, it's what I use for organizing my content ideas. My to-do list is in there and you can really like just dig deep into it and make it your own. I don't know how to, it's kind of like a note taking app, a project management software. It's like everything in one. And it is
Mm,
just, I think you'd really enjoy it if you delve into it. It took me a little while to kind of get the hang of it because there's so much you can do with it.
yeah.
But I just have everything in Notion. I
Cool.
think you'd get a kick out of Notion, I think for sure.
I would
Um,
love to test it out. Right now for project management, we use Asana. We just transferred into that and the team loves it. So I'm like, this is a really good spot. And then this is interesting because I don't know why. Certain software just really makes sense to my brain and like gamifies things. Like I really loved seeing how Duolingo like gamifies everything. It's one of my favorite apps, and I am so motivated. I'm like, I'm going to crush everybody in the Diamond League. I'm going to get first on the leaderboard, especially on weekends. I'm like, I'm going to play for 2 hours and learn this language and beat everybody. And so I've been loving Todoist, which is like to-do list without an L. And I love it because you get to check things off and you get to categorize them. So for me, the checklist is like so beautiful and it's electronic and it repopulates every day.
That's crazy. Todoist was mentioned on episode number 3, and this is episode 177. So we're coming full circle here with Todoist. Yeah. Kind of back into this document of 937 viral TikToks. I'm curious what you've identified that helps hold retention through a video.
Interesting. So one thing I've noticed is that the stronger a hook is, the longer people will watch. So the more like high energy, I don't want to say in your face, because even though I'm high energy, I don't try to like bulldoze in my content. That's not like my persona, but high energy in the hook is big. This is also a big thing, especially for the first like 10 seconds of your video. You want all of the clips to be really tight. You don't want a ton of dead time or no talking time. So what I'll do is I'll record them in the TikTok app, and I'll hold it like as long as I'm going to talk. And sometimes I even clip the beginning and end of my words in each and every sentence off. One other thing too that's really neat is if you add text that is giving an additional narrative, people will watch for longer, especially in the first 10 to 20 seconds. And that helps a lot. Most people are not good at this, me included. But if you can future pace the video and say, at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you, and then I'll share with you how or why, or then I'll share with you a resource that'll help. That's really good. I'm actually not good at that. And I think it would be really helpful. And I think about it a lot, but I don't actually do it as much as I'd like to. When I have, I've been like, wow, these results are amazing. But if you can make people feel listened to, it's huge. So one mistake a lot of people make is talking a lot about themselves before connecting it with your audience. There's actually 2 really great formats that work well for like the beginning of your video, and that's the PAS framework, problem, agitate, solution, and then AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. And both of those work really well as like a good like framework for the video, because you're walking people through a transformation basically. And so I find that the more you put into preparing your TikToks, the better they do. That doesn't mean I'm always perfect at it though, that's for sure.
That was gonna be my next question. Do you script them out or anything like that? Because if you're doing 10 a day, do you write them out first and then record them? Or how do you make sure you're putting those frameworks of ADA in the TikTok? Or is it just natural now at this point because you've done it so many times, you've had so many reps?
I will say sometimes I'm really good at it and I'm not always good at it. And that's one thing. It's actually just this morning, I was like, why did I stop like really putting a ton of planning into all my TikToks? I've been kind of defaulting to the easy, which is the trending videos because they're so easy to just whip out in one take. My original audios are close to one take, but they're not always perfect. Like if I have a tongue twister, I'll restart that segment because I know how important retention is on original audio content. But I was just thinking about that this morning. I was like, I need to really like set myself up for success, or maybe bring in someone who builds out the AIDA or the PAS frameworks for me so I can just read them and just go. Or like just review it and kind of generally follow it. But I haven't been great at it.
You just said there that retention is important with original audio. Have you noticed that it's not as important if you're using a trending sound or someone else's sound?
It seems to me that there's a little bit of a natural built-in lift in retention with trends. I don't know where I heard this, so I can't cite anyone, but I saw one time and it was like, you know, when like TikTok refreshes and you're like, no, and you lose a video forever. That was how this video was. I've had 2 videos in particular that the day I find them, I'm going to be so excited because I talk about them a lot. But one of them, they said that the average person can see a trend 11 to 13 times before they're tired of it. And so when you do a trend, everybody likes to be in the know on inside jokes, right? Like we all do. And so when you create a trending video or a video to a trending sound, everyone feels like they're kind of in the know. And so people will watch longer with some caveats, but they'll generally speaking watch it to the end, especially if it's shorter. Versus with original audio, they're making a ton of decisions. Do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Do I know this person? Why should I listen? Why should I care? Do they care about me? All those questions are coming up. So you want to intentionally get people to pay attention for 10 or 20 seconds so that they don't just swipe past in the first 3 seconds and say, nah, not me.
So how can you do that beyond just a compelling hook?
The short edits, so removing like space is huge. I also like to kind of share like additional insights or layers with text. So I'll be like, uh, my dog was barking at the doorbell, so I had to re-record this. It's almost like, when you watched like The Office and then you watch The Office with director or writer commentary and you're like, oh, no way, I had no idea. So you can share some things like if I were to talk about retention on videos. I could share examples of what those look like on the screen. So there's a secondary narrative going on, and people say, dude, she's not only telling us what to do, she's showing us how to do it, and she's giving examples in the video. And those are really powerful.
And then for duration of video, you said 10 to 20 seconds a couple times. Is that the sweet spot you found for videos?
No, this is really interesting. The sweet spot on any platform is based on your ability to retain an audience. So this blows my mind. I didn't necessarily learn this from anyone, but I kind of watched as I saw some people creating 60-second, 3-minute videos on YouTube. I saw people making like 4-hour videos or 7-hour videos. And I was like, what the heck? And the truth is, however long you can capture an audience for is how long your videos can be. So not everyone's going to watch till the end. That's not even close to realistic. But let's say I actually kind of like to master things on a shorter form content level first before making it longer. So I recommend, especially with like TikTok Reels, IG Reels, YouTube Shorts, I recommend people start with sub 15 seconds while they learn the platform and kind of shake the nerves out a little bit and get used to creating before going on to 60-second videos, because it's harder to retain an audience for longer on a 60-second video.
I'm curious if you've seen, because you said you take your TikToks and you repurpose them for Instagram and YouTube. Do you notice the same content works on, or like the best performing stuff is the same, or is it different?
First up, you have some really good questions, and I really like these because this is like nerd out zone. Okay, so what's interesting, and it always blows my mind, and this is across the board for myself and my clients, it is almost never the same videos that perform on each platform. And it blows my mind. Like I uploaded one TikTok that got, I don't know, 15,000 views on TikTok, which is fine. Uploaded the same TikTok to YouTube Shorts. It had 640,000 views within a week. Same video on Instagram got like 740 views, probably because it mentioned TikTok a lot. And I have a feeling either the people on IG don't like TikTok or Instagram doesn't like TikTok. But it is almost never the same videos that perform on each and every platform. And that blows my mind. So even if I create a piece of content on TikTok that doesn't work there, I know I can upload it to IG and maybe be really surprised by the results. And that actually happens a lot. And then YouTube has been pretty standard, like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. And then once in a while I'll be like, oh, that's really good. So it's worth repurposing, because just because something bombed on one platform doesn't mean it won't will on the next one.
For YouTube, have you kind of been able to figure out what makes those videos that really do well? Because like I can't figure out the YouTube Shorts algorithm. It's like TikTok, I have a general understanding, high retention, watch video 100%, a lot of shares. But YouTube, I'll have a video with like 125% average view time versus one that's 83 average view time with less likes, and it'll do better. So I can't figure out the YouTube Shorts. Do you have any insight at all into their algorithm?
I can share what I learned directly from YouTube Corporate. I have an amazing YouTube Shorts manager at YouTube. I love her so much. And she hosts calls where all of us YouTube Shorts creators get together and talk. She mostly invites people who are crushing it on TikTok, who are making the transition into YouTube Shorts, which I really like. And it was very interesting because every question we asked so many questions. I asked a ton. I was like, okay, I want you guys to sit down for a second because I have 15 questions to ask, which quickly became 22. But everyone was like, these are such good questions. Basically, the answers to everything was it depends. It depends. It depends. Test everything, test everything. And I realized they don't know what works and they don't really see the rhyme or the rhythm or the reason. And it was kind of like actually mind blowing for me. I'm going to pull up my top performing YouTube short because there were some patterns I identified from it that I found really fascinating. It's not a special video. I'll share the link with you so you can see it. But if you sort my videos based on most popular, I think it's in the top 5 most popular. So I'll share this with you, Jacob. So there are a couple things that I noticed with this one. It is a short video, it's 6 seconds. I don't think that's like the reason why it performed. There's some interest in it because I'm walking through a door, which always makes people say, why is the door open? Why is she walking through that door? What room is she in? Where did she just leave? Like it builds some natural like curiosity. I will say this, I don't know if this adds or detracts, but my hair and makeup look amazing in it. I always think it works. It always seems to perform better than my videos with no makeup. So I always do my makeup these days. And then a few more things. The first line is I wish I could learn how to get my first 1,000 TikTok followers. So that's a super loaded line. It is a hook, but a different type of hook. It is getting inside of the conversation already going on in the person watching its brain, which is Robert Collier, of course. We must always enter the conversation already occurring in the prospect's mind. But also, there's one more thing that's really interesting. It's super reasonable. So, like, no one's going to read that and say, yeah, sure, step one, be hot or whatever, or step one, be a girl. They're like 1,000 followers feels realistic. Even if this person with 1 million followers is saying, here's how you get your first 1,000, amazing. And then there were a couple more things in this video. So I keep getting closer to the camera to add just a little extra interest. And then at the end, this is at the end of the video, I say no more. I've got you. I've got a free tutorial, Bink in my Lio. Now I say Bink in my Lio because TikTok and IG have been weird about saying link in my bio. They've been actually like censoring all of those comments and captions and videos. Bink in my Lio works as it stands right now. And that always gets engagement. So a lot of people are like, Bink in my Lio, did she just say Bink? Like there's a lot of engagement based on that. But also the fact that it's a free tutorial, like there's no, I'm trying to sell you or anything like that. And they're like, dude, is this really like an open palm give? And I think that that impresses people. But then there's one more thing. I cut it off as it looked like I was about to share the answer. So it's really short. And then I think people rewatch it.
You've got me. I'm going to spend like this weekend now. All I want to do is just start going through TikToks with a notebook next to me and start identifying, finding patterns. But I know we're running out of time here. So I'm going to jump to my last 2 questions. It'll be super quick.
Let's do it.
What is something about social media, maybe TikTok specifically, that you believe that most people don't?
Ooh. Okay. There are certain exceptions to this. But I do not personally believe that most people who think they're shadow banned are actually shadow banned. A true shadow ban is 0 views, 0 reach, and potentially not even being able to share the video or it not showing up on your profile. A lot of times people are like, what the heck? I've been shadow banned by this platform. I went viral. Now they're showing my videos to no one. And the truth is, oh, this is going to be so harsh. Sorry, tough love incoming. It's time to up level your content. So the truth is there's a sad reality check after going viral because you're like, I got all these new followers and my videos aren't being seen by all of them. Yep. Time to crush it again and up level and everything. But once again, most people aren't actually shadow banned, but there are some exceptions, but it's literally 0 views, 0 comments, 0 exposure to the For You page.
For the last question, I like to flip the script a little bit. So instead of me asking the question, it's you asking the question, but it's not to me.
Okay.
Pretend you have a crystal ball. You can ask this crystal ball any question. You'll get the 100% honest answer. What is one question you want to know the answer to?
Oh, I love this question. I would ask the crystal ball, what is the greatest opportunity for scaling on social media 5 years down the road? That's what I would ask. Mhm.
I like that. Rachel, I want to thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast. I want to give you the floor now. Where can the people find you? Plug anything and everything you got right now.
Easiest place to find me is my website, rachelpedersen.com. That's all E's and a D in my last name. We link to all my social media. I have 16 free resources just on my website, as well as links to tutorials and all kinds of powerful free resources.
Awesome. Well, make sure everything's linked in the show notes down below so people can find it. I'll link your socials in there as well so it's easy for them. But I want to thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening, whether you've listened the entire way through or you only listen to bits and pieces. I really appreciate you taking time to check this out. Everyone do me a favor, go and follow Rachel. You can follow me on social media at the Jacob Kelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. As always, today's podcast is powered by Surf. Thank you once again for listening. We'll talk soon.